Hi everyone, this is Tyler here. I wanted to do this kind of quick video, and we'll try to do another one before Christmas, but we'll see. Um, First of all, thank you so much for all the comments that I've gotten recently over some of my latest videos, especially my Joni Mitchell one. I worked really hard on that one, so it's definitely very nice to know that all the hard work that I put into editing and putting the video up and kind of gestating everything and figuring out what goes where, that sort of thing. It was really helpful to see that it paid off really well and that people really enjoyed it. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I love the comments. Love reading the comments. They're so great. And I love engaging conversations with people, especially when it comes to music. It's one of my favorite things. So I wanted to come on here real quick. This video is not going to be as long as my other video, but we're just going to kind of quickly show off some of my Christmas vinyl, cassettes, CDs, whatever, since we're in the festive moment right now. And as of me making this video, it is the 21st. So we got a few more days left until Christmas. So I wanted to kind of just show off some of my collection. I actually have like a little setup here. um, I got my old Audio Technica turntable hooked up to this old boombox over here, and then since there's not a CD player on this boombox, I have a Sony. I'll show it to you real quick. It's kind of just a little makeshift little stereo setup or whatever. You can see I got my iPod and stuff there too. Um, just a basic kind of setup, so that way my parents, we can listen to music together, and it's kind of fun. I put records on all the time for them. So okay, so I'm gonna show this one first because I literally just found this and I didn't know that I had it. But this was obviously some cassette that I believe belonged to my mom back in the 80s or 90s. I don't know, but it's not in a case or anything. It was just in a kind of basic case. But this is one of those compilations that they made a lot back in the day. It says 1980. I know she didn't get it that long ago, but it's called "Dreaming of a White Christmas." It was made by CBS Records. Um, so we got Johnny Mathis with Percy Faith and his orchestra, Jim Nabors, Aretha Franklin, um, Engelbert Humperdinck, Tony Bennett, Barbra Streisand, Simon and Garfunkel, Andy Williams. Pretty good selection here. I haven't even listened to it yet. I'm gonna definitely listen to that soon. I also kind of want to show this off too, because this is kind of Christmassy, but more or less wintry than anything. But I feel like it's very appropriate to listen to something like this at this time of the year. And as most of y'all know, I'm a Kate Bush fan, and of course it's 50 Words per Snow. I don't have the vinyl of this. I only have the CD, and it comes in this really nice booklet. I really like how the albums were set up for Kate for when she did Fish People, which I think she still does. But this is basically just kind of like a little booklet, and there's like little formations here of different little like snow figures and stuff. And then that's that. This is a long album. I think this is probably the longest in Kate Bush's discography, unless maybe Ariel was a little bit longer. But this is one of those albums. Like I said in my ranking video, I'm sure I probably said this, but I don't rewatch a lot of my videos just because I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to hear myself talk. But I know I probably mentioned how this is a really hard album to get into, and it absolutely is. It's 7 tracks, and a lot of them are anywhere between like 6 and 7 minutes to about 20 minutes. Very long. Like it's only 7 tracks, and it's a very long album, but it's really pretty too. But I think maybe the novice Kate Bush fan, is probably not for them. But I got a few CDs here. I know I've got more than this, but I just I don't know. I just didn't really feel like getting them all out for some reason, and I think some of them don't have the cases because a lot of them belong to my mom, and my mom didn't really, she just put them in a CD case back in the day and just called it a day, and who knows where those cases are now. I certainly don't know. But anyways, so the first one I'm going to show off is the Taylor Swift Holiday Collection. This is an EP that Taylor put out back in 2009, I believe. So this came out right after Fearless. Actually, I think it might be a little bit older than uh, the copyright date says, because I think this came out in like 2007 or 8. So I feel like this is because her voice definitely sounds very teenaged on here. Um, but this is a really decent EP. It's not the best thing in the world. It's just 6 tracks. And there's 2 tracks on here that she wrote herself. Christmas is When You Were Mine and Christmas Must Be Something More. And then she covers Last Christmas, Wham's Last Christmas, Santa Baby, Silent Night, and White Christmas. It's a decent set. I'm not really super huge on her versions of Last Christmas and especially Santa Baby. I think her version of Santa Baby is kind of it's a little embarrassing, honestly, because I'm used to the version that Eartha Kitt put out in the 50s, and that's probably the most well-known version of Santa Baby, and she just purrs and coos and really, really puts in that sensuality into that song and a very sexy feel to it. And Taylor just rips all of that out, because she at the time, she was a teenager, so she had this very kind of conservative feel. So it just basically kind of sounded like, like she's talking to her boyfriend or whatever. And her version of Last Christmas is okay at best. But, yeah, that's Taylor Swift's Holiday Collection. Okay, and then the next CD, I just got this. This was 95 cents in the bargain bin. This is Merry Christmas by Bing Crosby. It's a classic. This is an older pressing, MCA pressing. But, this is probably one of my favorite Christmas albums. I mean, Bing Crosby, that name alone, just very Christmassy to most of us. I don't really know much about his other music that he had, and not a lot of people do, honestly. I think he's just kind of a very Christmassy figure now. He's not really known for a lot of his other stuff nowadays, and he came from the pre-rock era, so it's really easy to just kind of be like, yeah, he made some really good Christmas music. But in actuality, he was actually pretty groundbreaking as a person. I did read that he sort of opened the doors for magnetic tape to really come into play because at the time, of course, tape machines and all of that, they were just coming up to the surface, in the 30s and 40s, and more people were starting to record their stuff to tape, and a lot of radio shows were recorded live. They were broadcast live from this like stage or studio or whatever. And Bing really wanted to kind of pre-record some performances and just put them out on the airwaves that way and just play the tape that way. And that's how tape machines and magnetic tape and music really started to take off as a medium. So we have Bing Crosby to thank for that aspect, this sort of live to tape or recorded to tape, recorded to digital, whatever, because he pretty much started that whole trend. Okay, so the next one is A Charlie Brown Christmas by Vince Guaraldi Trio. I think that's how you pronounce it. Okay, if I butchered it, I'm so sorry. But yeah, this is the Charlie Brown Christmas soundtrack from the special. This is a special edition one. I had a copy of this album, and it was an 80s pressing that I found at Goodwill a long time ago, but I have no idea where it ran off to, and I found this one a couple of years ago, and I went ahead and bought it just because I lost that other one. And this has some little blurbs and stuff about the making of the album and how it sort of came to fruition and that sort of thing. And it also has some extra bonus tracks that the original album didn't come with, which is really cool. They're not really Christmas tunes. I tend to skip them, just because they don't really add much value other than Green Sleeves. That track, which I think that was already a bonus track on the original version. Yeah, it was. So the other two bonus tracks is the Great Pumpkin Waltz and the Thanksgiving theme. So they're not really Christmassy, but you know it's still a really fun album to listen to nonetheless. But I mostly listen to it on vinyl. I just got it just because collectability. And then we have one of my favorite Christmas albums. This is the Carpenters' Christmas Portrait from 1978. This is a reissue of the album. Back in the 80s, Richard Carpenter, he actually, when it was released to CD, instead of putting the original vinyl version of the album on to CD, he instead chose that he would sort of mix together Christmas Portrait and An Old Fashioned Christmas, which was a posthumous album that came out after Karen Carpenter's death. That album came out in 1984, and it was basically like outtakes from the Christmas Portrait album. So really, in a nutshell, this is kind of the album as it was meant to be, I guess you could say, if they didn't release it in the vinyl era. So, but I do have a little bit of beef with this a little bit because there is some tracks that are omitted from the original album. I really like the overture from the vinyl version of the album a lot. The First Snowfall, there's not many on here, just the overture really and the First Snowfall. But those, they have a lot more tracks on here. I know There's No Place Like Home for the Holidays. That's a really popular version for the Carpenters. I know that plays a lot on the radio as well as like Sleigh Ride and Merry Christmas Darling. But I know their version of Home for the Holidays plays a lot on the radio. So this has the Home for the Holidays on the CD, and the original vinyl did not have that. It was on the old-fashioned Christmas vinyl. Okay, so that completes that. Okay, so we're going to start out with the cassettes. So I'm not going to harp too much about these. I'm just going to kind of show them off. So obviously we showed that one that was kind of loose. And then this one is Donna Summer's Christmas Spirit. This is a Christmas album she recorded in 1994. So technically speaking, this is the second to last album that she would put out before her death. If you count Christmas albums, of course. It's an okay album. Nothing too crazy. There's nothing really spectacular about it. It's very ballad heavy. So there's not really like a dance version of like a Christmas song or something like you would think with the Donna Summer album, but it's good for what it is and just to kind of mellow out too if I want to listen to Christmas music around this time of the year. Then we have the Home Alone soundtrack. This was like a thrift store find. We all know Home Alone. Merry Country Christmas. This was obviously a quarter. It's just got some country artists from the 80s on here. I especially like this because it has Hard Candy Christmas by Dolly Parton, which I really like. And then in addition to that, you have like Charlie Pride, Ronnie Milsap, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, just these sort of the major country artists of that time period. So then we have Elvis's Christmas album. This is one of the many reissues that came out of this album. This is one of the ones that was the most successful. I believe this version came out in the 70s, but I think this cassette, it says 1985, so this is obviously a reissue of the album. But it's been reissued plenty of times, and it's sold very, very well throughout the 70s and 80s, especially after his death. Next up, we have Mariah Carey's Merry Christmas. Really great album. I really enjoyed this one. I spent 50 cents on this. I'll show you the back there. This is actually a Canadian cassette. I didn't realize this until I brought it home several months after I bought it, that this is actually a Canadian version. If you look, let's see. I never know where to point, but it's right there, made in Canada. Nothing too crazy. I mean, it's the same as the USA version. It just says made in Canada. But I had another copy of this, but I kept it in my car. So, and then we have A Chipmunk Christmas. This is a really old tape. This is one that my mom got me at Goodwill when I was like 11 or 12 years old. And we used to play it in her car because her car had a cassette player. And, you have to remember, like 11, 12 years old, this was probably like 2006, 2007-ish, so mid-2000s. So, cassettes were kind of out of favor by that point, but because my mom had a cassette player in her car, she would get Christmas tapes and stuff to play in the car. And, of course, Chipmunks. Love the Chipmunks. I used to listen to this album all the time when I was a kid. I had a CD version of it. I don't know where it ran off to, but she's around here somewhere. And then we have more tapes. Here's the cassette version of the Carpenters' Christmas Portrait from 1978. This is probably a reissue from the 80s, more than likely, since it's in a clear cassette. This is the original track listing from the vinyl. It's not the special edition like for the CD. I do want an old-fashioned Christmas on vinyl and cassette, but it is really expensive on vinyl. And I would have gotten the cassette, but it's already too late to get it now. So I'll just kind of keep it as one of those. It's like, if I find it in the wild, cool, awesome. This is a random one that I have. Merry Merry Christmas by New Kids on the Block. I listened to this a little bit last week, I think. I wasn't really too impressed by it. And on top of that, I think its downfall really is the fact that it doesn't really have any memorable Christmas songs on here. There's only 3 Christmas songs that I know that are like more traditional. That would be the Christmas song, White Christmas, and Little Drummer Boy. The rest is like originals written by them. I'm not really that big of a New Kids on the Block fan, but this was like one of those cheapies that I found at the thrift store, and I went ahead and got it, and I looked at it and I was kind of like, I could live without it. So that one might go to the chopping block. So okay, then we have Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Burl Ives. This is another one of those cassettes like my mom got with the Chipmunks. I think she got this one around the same time. This is one from the 80s. It's a really, really super quick album. It's 8 tracks. It's probably like 20 minutes long. Not that long at all. I actually think this is a truncated version of the original album, which was called Holly Jolly Christmas, which basically ran off with Holly Jolly Christmas, the song. So, but yeah, this is one of those that me and my mom would play in the car. Here's another one. This is one of many compilations that were made in the cassette era, Christmas Rock. It's basically like rock and roll era Christmas songs. It's got Run, Rudolph Run, Chuck Berry, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, Jackson 5, I Believe in Christmas, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Jingle Bell Rock, Bobby Helms, Merry Christmas Baby, Chuck Berry, Hey Santa Claus, The Moon Glows, Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, Brenda Lee, and The Little Drummer Boy from The Supremes. Not a bad album. Actually, it's got a lot of bangers on it. Then we have this one, Merry Christmas, The Supremes. This is actually one of the very few cassettes that I have from Motown that actually plays. I have not had much luck with Motown tapes. I think they made them cheaply and they just don't play anymore. They squeak a lot. That's the downfalls of collecting cassettes, is that sometimes you'll get cassettes and they're just absolutely unplayable. To the point where it's like, and they squeal through the cassette player and it goes in through the sound and it sounds horrendous. But this one actually sounds really, really good. And I think that has to do with the fact that it was distributed by a record club, MCA Distributing Inc. And I believe that this is probably like a BMG type thing or something. But anyway, so like this was like 50 cents. I like the Supremes. I like the Supremes versions of their songs. And last but not least, with the cassettes, we have Diana Ross, Making Spirits Bright. This is probably another one of those. Found them for a quarter, 50 cents, whatever, and bought it. This is apparently an album that came out at the Hallmark store. So we got lots of vinyl. I tend to listen to Christmas albums more on vinyl than I do on any other format. So, especially because a lot of Christmas tunes and stuff, they came from the olden days. So it's very easy to kind of be like, well, I just want to listen to them on vinyl. No big deal. So we got Merry Christmas by the Supremes. This is an original pressing of this album. I found this for 75 cents at Goodwill. There's the price sticker right there. Plays really well. Still in the sleeve, thankfully. There's a lot of these that aren't in the sleeve, but they still play. But yeah, this is kind of cool to have. Then we had The Little Drummer Boy by the Harry Simone Chorale. This is basically the original, like, or not original, but the most well-known version of the Little Drummer Boy is on here. That's from the Christmas special. I believe this belonged to my grandmother. She bought it back in the day, probably at Kmart, and she gave it to me just because she knew I collected vinyl. So this is probably one of the oldest records that I have in my collection, actually. And my dad got this for me back in like 2013 at a thrift store at the beach when we were staying at the beach and in the summertime. And he thought it would be a really cool collectible to have, and it absolutely is. And it is Bing Crosby's Christmas album. This is actually a 10-inch album, if you can't tell. I'll kind of show you in comparison to another album that's 12 inches. It was really common for a lot of albums back in the day to kind of be 10 inches, and you can tell that this is an old album because the thickness of this record is a lot thicker than some of these other albums that I have, and it's not flimsy either. And I think they use different materials to make this vinyl. But it's really cool. It's from 1951. She's very noisy. She's got a little bit of a hiss to her, but I mean that comes with the territory. I don't care. It just kind of adds the nostalgic factor to it and kind of adds the vintagey type feel. But I really like it. I do have this on vinyl as well, like the CD version, and this has a few tracks that were omitted from this version, but they mostly have the same track list. It's just there's an additional tracks on this one. So that's Bing Crosby. And then we have Elvis's Christmas album. This was one of my dollar finds at my favorite store, McKay's, which at the time it was Edward McKay. Really glad to have this. I know my grandmother had this album, and I could only find the sleeve. Couldn't find the record. Sigh. So it was kind of nice to finally find a copy of this, which it's really ubiquitous. It's not really that hard to find, but this is one of those reissues from the 70s. Can't you tell? It's definitely very 70s. And then we have another Christmas album. This actually belonged to my great-grandfather, and it's Elvis Sings the Wonderful World of Christmas. This album came out in 1971, so this was several years after his original Christmas album. So it's got a lot of just more traditional songs, not necessarily like rock and roll type feels to them. I think he really got a little more religious at this point. But it's still a decent album, but you can tell it's from the 70s for sure. It's just not as memorable as the original, like the old Christmas album. So, and then we have this random Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer album. I don't really play this that often, but I think I got it in like a stockpile of records at the flea market a few years ago, probably when I was a teenager. I never played this. Actually, no, it didn't come from there. It came from a bunch of yard sale stuff that a family friend of ours was giving away, and I got it for free, and so that's how I got it. But I finally played this year, and it's actually like one of those storybook type things. It has a lot of dialogue on it. It just tells the story of Rudolph and I think Frosty the Snowman as well, on the night before Christmas. And there are some songs interspersed in here in between, but it's definitely a it sounds like it's from the 1950s or 60s. So it's not really something that I want to play regularly, like during Christmas. So this is definitely one from the flea market, and I'm so glad to have this one. This is the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer soundtrack. This has got all the songs from this Christmas special. What's really fascinating about this record is the fact that on side one, you have all the songs from the special on here. And in side two, you have instrumentals of those same songs. So it's basically, you could play this in one swoop on one side and then call it a day if you really wanted to. And that's what I usually do with this. But it has all the Burl Ives versions and stuff on it. So it's really cool. I really am glad that I have this. And then we have John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together. This is one of those cutesy albums I got at the thrift store. I paid $1.99 for this, evidently. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I found this around the same time I found Janet Jackson's Control album. I think. But I might be wrong. This is a really cute album. It's fun to listen to. It's really quick. most of these are quick albums, like 30, 40 minutes, sometimes not even that long. They're like maybe 20 minutes long. So you don't really have to invest too much time into it. But this is so cute. I love this. And I loved the Muppets when I was a kid. So this is definitely very nostalgic for me. Then we have A Very Special Christmas. I was really excited to find this. I found this at a record store when I was about 17 or 18 years old. And it absolutely in pristine condition. I mean, it's gorgeous. And I think it was in a dollar bin. I was really excited to find it. But and it has a lot of great tunes on here. Of course, the proceeds to this album went to help the Special Olympics, and the album cover was made by Keith Haring, and he actually passed away not too long after A Very Special Christmas came out. But this has a lot of great tunes. The Eurythmics version of Winter Wonderland, I hear that a lot. The Pretenders, John Cougar Mellencamp, Run DMC, Christmas in Hollis, U2, Madonna, Bob Seger, Bryan Adams, Bon Jovi, Sting, Stevie Nicks, Pointer Sisters, Whitney Houston. Just solid compilation. I really like this one. It's really just a who's who of the 80s. And then we have another album. Have you noticed that a lot of Christmas albums are called Merry Christmas? But anyways, so this is Johnny Mathis's Christmas album. This is one of those 75-cent finds. Was really glad to find this because I hear a couple of Johnny Mathis's versions of Christmas tunes on the radio a lot, especially Winter Wonderland. Anyways, so here we have the Christmas song by Nat King Cole. This is a really nice find. I got this at the flea market, probably about the same time I got the Rudolph one. But this was a really nice find. It's a really great album, really warm, cozy album. Nat King Cole just has a really comforting voice to me. I think he has probably one of the best voices in the business. Then we have two Chipmunks albums. I think these came from thrift stores too. This is Volume 1. This is a repress from the 80s, as you can tell from the label. So it's a little all scratched up. She's a little noisy, but it's okay. Now this one is Volume 2. This one, I believe, is from the 60s or 70s, because I can tell by the label. So 75 cents at Goodwill. And then this one was $1.99 at another thrift store I go to. Or used to go to, really. Okay, and then we got A Country Christmas. This is one of those old albums that I got when I was like a kid. It's kind of the same thing as the country album that I got on cassette. It just has the basically who's who of 80s country. Charlie Pride, Alabama, Willie Nelson. I don't really know some of these other people though. But yeah, there's that. And then we have, here's a couple of albums. I don't really listen to these that much, but I'll show them anyway. So we have the Osmonds Christmas album. I was never really into the Osmonds. This is more my mom's mom and dad's generation. So, Jim Reeves, 12 Songs of Christmas. This belonged to my great-grandfather. I never listened to this. I've thought about listening to it at least once, but we'll see. Then we have Disney Christmas Favorites. I cannot listen to this. It's sped up vocals like the Chipmunks, but not as memorable and kind of annoying, honestly. Not gonna lie to you. And then 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. This was one of my favorite Christmas specials as a kid. My mom recorded it for me on tape, and I played it every year. I even played it the other day. But this is basically it's basically the audio version of the Christmas special. But it's kind of nice to have. I was really glad to have it because it has all the songs from it, and it even has the dialogue and stuff from the special. So that's pretty cool. So, and here's the 3 main ones that I really listen to. Actually, 4 main ones that I listen to a lot. I'll show this one first because I was playing this on my stereo earlier. Charlie Brown Christmas on vinyl. I love this album, and I especially love the fact that it is on green vinyl. That is so pretty. And look at that through the light. Like, that's so cool. So pretty. I like that a lot. I'm going to put it back on my turntable, and I'll put it up later. Okay, and then we have the Carpenters' Christmas Portrait. I think it's safe to say that this is probably my favorite Christmas album, honestly. I love Karen Carpenter, and Karen Carpenter and Christmas music go so well together. I mean, I think she's right up there with Mariah Carey and Bing Crosby as far as Christmas music is concerned. Um, and generally speaking, she's one of the best vocalists of all time. I love the Carpenters. I absolutely adore them. And then I showed this one. This is Merry Christmas, Mariah Carey. I think I showed this in my other video a while back, but I'll show it to y'all again. I love this album. And it's on red vinyl. Very, very bright red vinyl. Really pretty. And then, last but not least, this is a recent acquisition that I got for a few dollars on eBay. And this is the Phil Spector Christmas album. You might know this with a different album cover, but there was a lot of different iterations of it throughout the 70s and 80s, and this is one of those iterations. This actually came from the UK, but it's the same Christmas album from the 60s. I just like original pressings a lot. But anyways, this is probably also one of my favorite Christmas albums as well. I love the Phil Spector Wall of Sound. I'm not really super huge on Phil Spector as a person, but as an artist, as a producer, as a mastermind, he's incredible. One of the best that came out of the 20th century, for sure. But you have some classics here. Darlene Love, The Crystals, The Ronettes, just a solid selection of Christmas songs from those ladies. And then you have a couple from Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans. And then there's a closer with Phil Spector basically telling everybody thank you for buying the album and special thanks to all the artists and stuff to the instrumental of Silent Night. It's a really, really great album. I love this album a lot, and I especially love Darlene Love's version of Christmas Baby Please Come Home. It's a great album. Fantastic. Alright guys, well that concludes my Christmas vinyl collection. If I don't see you before Christmas, I hope you have, if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate any other holiday, happy holidays. I hope you had a wonderful holiday with whatever holiday you celebrate this month. And I will see y'all in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.